Welcome to the Ball Brad Show. Our lead story of the day is regarding updates on Donald Trump's court case, where Democrats are doing anything and everything that they can to put this man behind bars. And we're going to give you all the details before we jump into any of that. Support a true American patriot by hitting that like and subscribe button. Leave us a short, sweet comment down below. Share this link with your friends and family all over social media. With that being said, former President Donald Trump defended his business record against allegations of illegally enriching himself through inflated property valuations in a New York court on Monday. I mean, these Dems and libs will do anything and everything that they can to put this man behind bars. At this point, they are throwing spaghetti against the wall and just seeing what sticks. Trump got into several contentious back and forth with the judge, who complained throughout the former president's testimony about vague answers and political speeches. Trump at times defended himself and even attacked the prosecution's case. He said he was the victim of a political prosecution. And he's not really that wrong. I mean, just look at the way Trump has been treated on everything compared to how Joe Biden and his family's been treated. It's apples to oranges. Donald Trump doesn't pay a parking ticket, grand jury. Joe Biden launders money from China and lies about it. Nothing happens. It's wild. Trump said this is political warfare, as you would call it, or political lawfare, another name. I got a lot of names for it, Trump said in remarks before entering the courthouse Monday morning. Usually it takes place in third world countries and banana republics. Nobody has ever seen anything like this to this extent. We've never seen it here. And he's not wrong. I mean, his attorney came out and was ripping this court case and judge a new one. Here's this one.
The president's team has stepped up to the microphone. They just walked outside of the courthouse. Let's dip in here and listen.
More honest, coming from the judge who has already predetermined that my client committed fraud before we even walked into this courtroom.
True.
I'm not here to hear what he has to say. Then why exactly am I being paid as an attorney, and why exactly are taxpayer dollars being used in this courtroom? The answer is very clear. Because Miss James wants to stand right here like she did this morning and call my client a liar, call the company fraudulent, and make a name for herself. She said this morning that the numbers don't lie and they won't lie in this case. Well, Miss James, I have a message for you. The numbers didn't lie when you ran for governor, and that's why you dropped out. And the numbers don't lie when President Trump runs for office in 2024. And those numbers are loud and clear. This country is falling apart. And if we don't stop corruption in courtrooms where attorneys are gagged, where attorneys are not allowed to say what they need to say to protect their clients' interests, it doesn't matter what your politics are. Everyone has a right in this country to get up and put a defense. I don't care who you are. You have a right to hire a lawyer who can put objections on the record. You have a...
And she goes on for minutes, folks, just laying down the law. And what's amazing about this, that's Trump's attorney. That's a woman. Remember when Trump was against women, and all these things, but yet the guy hires women left and right? Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Kayleigh McEnany, this lady hires thousands of women across all his businesses. It's insane the lies that they make up about this guy. And the fact that the New York Attorney General that's going after Trump literally campaigned on targeting Trump for prosecution. That was the whole campaign. And Dems were like, of course we want this to happen because they all have Trump derangement syndrome. So again, James campaigned on targeting Trump for prosecution and has charged Trump and his companies and members of his family of lying on property valuations to secure favorable loans and other advantages illegally. James is seeking $250 million in restrictions on Trump's ability to do business in New York. For anybody that wants to do business, don't ever do business in New York or California. The red tape, the restrictions that are already there and implemented is not business friendly. The place sucks to do business, and that's why everybody's fleeing. They're getting the hell out of Dodge. They're fleeing California, New York, all these lefty areas because it sucks. Because it sucks. And if they're willing to do this to Trump, even if you're a Democrat, it don't matter. They're willing to do it to you. So you better be careful on what you ask for. At one point during Trump's testimony, the judge threatened to dismiss the former president and draw every negative inference that I can. His quote, draw every negative inference that I can because of the former president's answers to questions. I mean, this is a clown show. Get your tickets and buckle up because it's only the beginning of what we're seeing here from this judge and this attorney general. Trump's attorney had encouraged the judge to give Trump latitude when it came to answering questions. With this witness, it's far more efficient to listen and take it all in. Quote, no, I'm not here to hear what he has to say. I'm here to hear answers to the questions. Sit down, the judge exclaimed. We got another speech. I beseech you to control him if you can. If you can't, I will. I will excuse him and draw every negative inference that I can. That's an exact quote. You think this judge is a little biased? The guy that was laughing on camera that we saw, the dude's a joke. Dude is a big joke. I mean, the cards are aligning here, not in Trump's favor, just by the bias these people have and had against Trump. James's office alleged that financial statements from Trump's business properties over the years inflated their worth and allowed him to illegally enrich himself. Trump said that if there were errors in the documents, a disclaimer protected him. Quote, the disclaimer clause says if there's a mistake, if there's something, don't rely on it, Trump said. The disclaimers always hold up in court, except maybe this court. Well, I don't know if that's actually true or not. I mean, disclaimers are there on financial statements as well for anybody that's looking in terms of valuation or investing. So I'm sure there's maybe some truth to it, but who knows how far along Trump's actually extending that disclaimer clause that he's speaking of. For instance, prosecutors pressed Trump on the changing valuation of his Trump Tower apartment. The value changed in financial documents from $327 million in 2016 to roughly $117 million the next year. The change came after Forbes had reported in an article that Trump had inflated his net worth. Well, that came from CNN, so take it as a grain of salt. The former president said he was probably involved in the change and acknowledged that mistakes have been made in the earlier evaluation. So I'm curious on the earlier evaluation, there was clearly a mistake, which I would imagine they disclosed. So they corrected that mistake in the following year. That is my guess. He referenced several possible scenarios in which such a mistake could have been made. Quote, there's a disclaimer clause where you don't have to get sued by the Attorney General of New York, Trump said. Quote, if I want to build up the statement like you said, I did before you found out just how rich we are, I would have added brand value here and I would have increased it by tens of millions of dollars. So that's just Trump being Trump there. But as I've mentioned, they're doing anything and everything they can just to go after this man. And it's ridiculous. And by the way, people are fed up with it. I mean, poll numbers are coming out in Trump's favor more and more, just as long as this whole court case goes on. And the fact that they're doing this as Trump is being viewed by the American people almost as a martyr because Trump is a representation of America at large. And if they're willing to go after him, they're willing to go after you, the average Joe, as well as myself. So that's updates on the court case. But as I mentioned, it's astonishing how they're going after Trump for lying, the valuations of his assets and his property. But if you look at Joe Biden and his family, nothing's being done. And a matter of fact, Joe Biden and the Biden family are so comfortable with what's going on that now they're stonewalling. They're stonewalling, giving information to the GOP that's trying to look under the hood of this whole money laundering thing that's going on. So check this out. House Republicans investigating the Biden family for corruption said on Friday that President Joe Biden was stonewalling their requests for documents related to alleged loans he provided to his brother, James. I thought he didn't have anything to hide, according to him. I mean, as far as I was aware, Joe Biden knows nothing about his family's business dealings, specifically Hunter's business dealings. Now he's receiving $40,000, which sounds a lot like 10% of $400,000 from his brother, James, that received it from China. He also received $200,000 from James Biden that he also received from China. But remember, he didn't make any money from China. And during the campaign, it was all, well, Trump is making all this money from China and getting money from anywhere and everywhere. Sounds a lot like Joe Biden was speaking about himself. The House claims that after Representative James Comer said bank records show that President Biden received $40,000 in laundered Chinese money, House Republicans have asked for more documentation on the loans but say they have so far been refused. Why refuse them, Joe, if you got nothing to hide, bud? Why you're refusing all this stuff? A little sketchy here, but I guarantee you if Trump were to do this, every Democrat would be out in the streets complaining and whining. Quote, the White House today made clear to us that President Biden is refusing to hand over loan documents for any loans he provided to his brother, James Biden, a statement posted to X by the Oversight Committee. We've exposed nearly $250,000 that James Biden sent to Joe Biden as loan repayments that were funded by laundered China money and influence peddling schemes. I was told he was clear. He was clear. He was clean. He was good. Joe knows nothing. Joe did nothing. Joe's done nothing wrong according to Democrats and these libs. That ain't the case, folks. This is barely scratching the surface of this man and the Biden family's corruption. You don't just become super wealthy for no reason. Remember, Donald Trump was wealthy before he became president. He still is wealthy, but he was a businessman before, and then he became a politician. Joe Biden was never a businessman. Hunter doesn't know anything other than how to sniff crack cocaine off a dog's back and maybe a prostitute's ass. And he's just making millions of dollars everywhere. Just for doing nothing. Just sitting on the board of Burisma Holdings. Knows nothing about natural gas, which was being investigated by Shokin. And then you got Joe Biden when he's vice president. Hey, you better fire him or else you're not going to get the $1 billion. Quid pro quo. Nothing's happened. Nothing's being done. But they're going to go after Donald Trump for this valuation or misvaluation, even though he disclosed as a disclaimer in his financials, it sounds like, for all of that stuff. But nothing's going to be done with Joe. Joe's clean. And he knows it. He knows it. He knows nothing's going to happen to him because the government's corrupt. Trump didn't drain the swamp when he had a chance to do it. And if he gets back in, which get out and vote, by the way, if he gets back in, he needs to drain the swamp. It's his last term. Go crazy. Drain it, drain it, drain it, drain it, drain it. Quote, is this what the most transparent administration history is supposed to look like? Great question. Great question. From day one on that podium with Jen Psaki, they said, we're going to be the most transparent we've ever been. And then the classified documents scandal comes up. They're not transparent about that. Matter of fact, they lied to the American people multiple times. The Afghanistan pullout, not transparent in any shape or form. They lied about that. Look how that one turned out. They're not being very transparent with all the money that's going to Ukraine. So now billions of dollars is being funneled each and every which direction, not being transparent about that. The $6 billion in fungible humanitarian aid that's going to Iran was frozen, but it wasn't frozen. It went from South Korea then to Qatar so they can have easier access to it. They're not being transparent about that. The spy balloon that they said, well, we just found out about it, that they didn't shoot down till it was over the Atlantic. Well, they lied about that one. They weren't being transparent. Matter of fact, they were watching it from mainland China literally take off and fly over our airspace. It's insane, the lack of transparency from this administration. Democrats just sit back in these libs going, oh, it's fine. It's okay. No, I believe everything they say. Believe everything they say. Trump is bad. Don't like him, but Joe Biden's great. Quote, we won't be stopped by the president's stonewalling. We'll continue to follow the money, expose President Biden's corruptions, and deliver accountability. You guys, I always mention this, but Democrats went after Donald Trump for drinking a glass of water and his hand was shaking. Joe Biden hits a golf ball backwards, falls up a flight of stairs almost every single time, fights with his teleprompter, fumbles through his words, falls asleep during interviews, practically goes cross-eyed and like chameleon during interviews as well, meaning he don't know what the hell's going on. There's no inkling of, well, maybe we should look into the 25th Amendment and see if this guy is actually coherent enough to run the country, especially looking around at everything that's happening. This is not a joke when I say they were literally contemplating the 25th Amendment because Donald Trump's hand was shaking slightly for drinking a glass of water. Joe Biden can't have a coherent thought come out. No questions being asked. I mean, we are at full level of corruption. We covered the other day how the FBI had 40 sources giving them criminal information on the Biden family and the Biden family corruption, nothing being done. At the high level of government, especially the FBI, they were just getting rid of just information after information, source after source, and just hacking it down at the knees and not continuing any sort of investigation into this family. If that is not a corrupt government, I don't know what is. And now you're seeing a corrupt judicial system. Going after Donald Trump, you got a judge on there that's clearly biased. You got an attorney general that literally went and campaigned on prosecuting Trump. You are seeing such corruption and it is head spinning. How do we come back from it? I don't know, you guys. Donald Trump being president is not enough, unfortunately. I don't know how we recover from this. According to Comer, a $40,000 check written to Biden by his sister-in-law, Sarah, originated from Northern International Capital, a Chinese company affiliated with Chinese conglomerate CEFC. Eventually, it made its way to James and Sarah Biden after going through a series of Hunter Biden-linked entities. Yes, I hope you're sitting down. Pull over, folks. You just heard that correctly. I did not misread that. Eventually, it made its way to James and Sarah Biden after going through a series of Hunter Biden-linked entities, funneling, laundering money from one country to a business, an entity of which Hunter Biden was affiliated with, now to a Biden family member. As I said the other day, how many times do we need to see the receipts of a foreign country giving a Biden family member money and it being funneled into Joe's bank account? And now Joe is stonewalling Republicans, the House committee, on this whole thing, when he's going to come out and say, I got nothing to hide. It's not a big deal. Foozery. Dude, straight up lying. James and his wife, Sarah, then sent Joe Biden a $40,000 check for a loan repayment. Comer and House Republicans have questions. Yeah, I think we all do. I think we all got a lot of questions about what's going on. To the nature of the reported $40,000 check, another $200,000 check, also referred to it as a loan repayment. Just all these loans coming out. Wild. Republicans said that legacy media have ignored the story bigly. And when they don't ignore the story, it's just disinformation. It's misinformation, you guys. It's all hocus pocus. It's all smoke and mirrors. Remember how a lot of the country, a good portion of the country, actually would have switched their votes to Donald Trump if they knew that the Biden laptop, the Hunter laptop, was real? But then you had high level of FBI officials, the media, all working in conjunction with one another to say it was first misinformation, then it was Russian disinformation, and that turned out to just be a lie. It is wild, the corruption that's going on here. And like I said, I'm repeating myself, and I'm clear as day. Democrats are all for it. Why? Because they're for corruption when it goes after Donald Trump. They're not for corruption when it goes after Joe Biden. I'm not for corruption either way. I don't want corrupt people going after Joe Biden. I don't want corrupt people going after Donald Trump, because if they're willing to go after them, they're willing to go after you and I. I want them to go after Joe Biden because of what they're doing to Donald Trump. If they never opened up this door, then I'd say, you know what, whatever. I still think we should look under the hood on things, but there's always been corruption with presidents. They've always done shady, asinine things. Not the first thing. Joe isn't the first person to sit there and laundered money, I'm sure. Well, it goes a step further here with the Hunter Biden probe. We haven't had much information on that, but this morning and today, around 10 a.m., I think it's Eastern Standard Time. So basically right now, as we're showing this, we're premiering this episode, Special Counsel David Weiss is prepared for unprecedented testimony at House Judiciary on Hunter Biden probe. Now, let's do kind of a quick recap on everything, and we're going to give you all the details here because I'm sure you might have forgotten the whole David Weiss thing. Because if you recall, David Weiss is the special counsel looking into the Hunter Biden whole debacle with the laptop and the probes and the money and it funneling every which direction. And then you had Attorney General Merrick Garland saying that he didn't have unfettered access, or sorry, he had unfettered access. David Weiss is saying he didn't have unfettered access. And there's a lot of speculation that somebody there, specifically Merrick Garland, was lying, but nobody has been able to actually ask David Weiss, what the hell's going on? What the hell's going on? So special counsel David Weiss will take part in an unprecedented transcribed interview before the House Judiciary Committee Tuesday morning today, when he will answer questions about his year-long investigation in Hunter Biden, the Justice Department said. Weiss, who is leading the investigation into the president's son, will voluntarily testify behind closed doors at the House Judiciary Committee Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Quote, Special Counsel Weiss is appearing voluntarily to testify before the House Judiciary Committee about the scope of his authority. We needed this. We covered this a long time ago. Again, it was between what he said and what Attorney General Merrick Garland said. And Merrick Garland actually came out later and was like, no. We'll give him full access. Well, didn't he already have full access according to what you said under oath? So you're seeing some foozery going on, read in the wind, folks. A lot of weird stuff going on. Mr. Weiss is prepared to take this unprecedented step of testifying before the conclusion of his investigation to make clear that he's had and continues to have full authority over his investigation and to bring charges in any jurisdiction. If you recall, you got to pull from your memory here because we covered this a long time ago, is that he mentioned, and forgive me for not remembering the phraseology that he used, but he mentioned a phrase that gave the idea that there was somebody above him that was pulling the strings of this whole thing. We'll see if the article actually quotes it. Quote, consistent with department policy and the law, he will be unable to address the specifics of his investigations, Hornbuckle said. At the close of this matter, Special Counsel Weiss will prepare a report, which the Attorney General has committed to making public. Ooh, I can't wait for that one. To the greatest extent possible, consistent with the law, department policy, and the public interest. That last part kind of has me a little worried there. Public interest. Because I don't like when people determine what's in my best interest. And when the government's stepping into what's my best interest, a lot of times we butt heads on that. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, who I wish was Speaker, has been negotiating with the Justice Department to have Weiss and other federal prosecutors involved in the Biden investigation, excuse me, to testify before his committee for months. He's initially requested Weiss to meet with the committee on October 11th. Well, that didn't happen. The DOJ initially offered Weiss for public testimony back in July. Sounds like stonewalling to me. More foozery going on here. Attorney General Merrick Garland tapped Weiss in August to serve as special counsel with jurisdiction over the Biden investigation and any other issues that have come up or may have come up related to that probe. Weiss, the U.S. Attorney for Delaware, has been leading the investigation since 2018. His appointment as special counsel came amid allegations that politics had influenced or hampered prosecutorial decisions in the years-long investigation into Biden's son. His first move as special counsel, Weiss charged Biden with making a false statement in the purchase of a firearm. That one went viral. Making a false statement related to information required to be kept by a federal firearms license dealer, and one count of possession for a firearm by a person who is an unlawful user or addicted to controlled substance. The president's son pleaded not guilty to all charges last month, even though we have video and footage and pictures of him on drugs. Like literally, he's taking a nap and a pipe is out of his mouth hanging there. Weiss has said the investigation of the president's son is ongoing. I mean, how is it that Fox News can come out with receipt after receipt after receipt, but it's taken him from 2018 now, we're going on 5 years, to find anything? You were really quick to raid Trump's houses. You're not raiding Joe Biden's house or Hunter Biden's house or any of his family members, even after these receipts of checks of laundered Chinese money coming through. Nothing. I mean, I'm telling you, it's apple to oranges. Trump stubs his toe the wrong way, investigation. Trump looks in the direction of which Democrats don't like, investigation. Joe Biden brags on TV about firing a prosecutor that's looking into his son's business for shady business dealings and why the hell Hunter was even on the board in the first place, and says, I'm not going to give you $1 billion for it. Democrats are completely okay with it. Check after check being shown. Wild. Well, this one's going to be even more wild because reparations are favored by 70% of white respondents in Illinois, a new survey. So if you recall, this is going back way, maybe like 2 years at this point. We covered how there is a locality in Illinois that is giving people reparations. It is happening, and it's going to come to a locality near you sooner or later. Check this out. More than 60% of ethnic and racial demographic group think tanks reparations and think that reparations in Illinois, specifically Evanston, are good policy for the city. It's insane. In 2019, Evanston, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, created a government-funded reparations program, and 2 years later, in March of 2021, the city council voted 8-1, probably all Democrats, by the way, to approve a reparations plan that will provide $25,000 for qualifying Black residents to address harms caused by a pattern of housing discrimination and segregation that existed between 1919 and 1969. Kind of missed the mark, man. We're in 2023 and they're going back over a century. wild. I mean, that means that some of these people that were supposedly discriminated and segregated between 1919 and 1969 aren't even alive anymore. So on their deathbed, you're just going to give them $25,000? And by the way, how'd you come up with that valuation? Like, what formula did you use? And does every qualifying Black resident get that amount? Because I'm curious, because there's clearly a length of time here of 50 years of when somebody could have been screwed. So somebody could have been screwed in 1919, thus they would have had a 50-year of being screwed in terms of housing discrimination than somebody else would have in 1969. So how does the person that got screwed over and discriminated against in 1919 get the same amount of money for somebody that was discriminated against in 1969? Like, there's no interval there in terms of some sort of level of discrimination of the housing discrimination that somebody probably would have received the 50 years prior to the current time of 1969. Am I making sense here? There is a difference between those two types of people, right? I mean, the time horizon is vastly different. The move made the Chicago suburb the first city in the country to provide government funds. Oh, great. So you get to pay for somebody else's slavery and past discrimination. That's just lovely. You didn't do anything wrong, but it's coming out of your pocket. It really is insane, you guys, that the Democrats and these libs think it's okay for those that didn't have any sort of injustice. Like, they didn't put any injustice upon anybody in their lives, is having to pay for the injustices of somebody else that did in the past. Meaning you did nothing wrong, but you're having the one to pay the penalty for it. It could be like this. Somebody in your family at some moment in time did something bad, but you're the one that has to serve the time for it. You have to pay the penalty. Somehow, you guys, that makes sense to them. I didn't do anything wrong. Why am I going to have to pay for somebody else's wrongs? And with that logic, where does it stop? I mean, that's how insane that logic is. Well, this person did some sort of racial discrimination that was against the law, but your family member or somebody else's family member that didn't do that time because of the dint of birth, because you're white, you should serve time behind bars for that person because they're the ones that broke the law. I didn't do anything. That doesn't matter. You might as well just do it anyways because you're white. So everybody's having to pay out of pocket for this, and they don't see any sort of problem with that in any way, shape, or form. As of August 16, 2023, the locality had dispersed $1.1 million in reparations through the local reparations restorative housing program. Again, giving somebody $25,000, how is that going to solve the issue at all? It doesn't. It's just money out the door. As part of the survey, these residents were asked 2 questions. So this is called what's identified as an observational study here. Whether they believe the reparations program is good policy and how the passage of the reparation ordinance impacted their trust in city government. The study surveyed 3,500 residents, about 5% of the city population, between February and June. You're only doing 5% of the population. Somehow that's just going to be representative of the population as a whole. Again, it's not feasible sometimes, monetarily wise, or it's just literally not feasible to question an entire population. So you pull a sample, and the hope is that sample is reflective of the population as a whole. Well, the results show that 70% of white respondents, 64% of Black respondents, 61% of Latino respondents, and 62% of Asian respondents believe the program is a good public policy for the city. Now, here's the problem with surveys, is that you could have those that are very much fervent on this idea of reparations fill out the questionnaire or respond to the questionnaire because of that fervency, versus those that aren't very fervent or are in the middle, aren't inclined to answer the survey at all. And the problem with that is that you could be making public policy and moving forward with something with a skewed direction in terms of those that are actually being sampled. So you can have an unresponse bias here taking place where you have the people in the middle and the other people that actually aren't for these reparations at all, but because you only had a specific demographic of people, I understand I'm not talking about race here, but demographic of people in terms of those that are fervent and believe in reparations are more inclined to fill out the survey than others. Check this out. Previous surveys nationwide have never recorded more than 20% among white Americans for reparations. So your antenna should start going up of, you never had more than 20% support, but all of a sudden you have 70%. Now, I understand Illinois, and especially this locality, probably has some hardcore libs in it, But even then, these numbers should be raising awareness going, why is it so high against the national average? I gave you some reasons there. There's a lot of biases that seep into observational studies, even to the point of where the question was asked could lead to a specific type of bias within itself, meaning you're trying to create a policy that you favor. So you're going to create questions in which would sit there and direct somebody's answer to a question that is pro your policy or narrative that you're trying to push forward. In addition, after the Evanston, is it Evanston or Evanston? You guys let me know. City Council voted to pass the reparation ordinance. It led to a double-digit net increase in trust of city government among ethnic and racial demographic groups, as well as all 9 of the city wards. I don't know what that means. What does trust mean in government? You trust them to give you money? The survey is the first feedback that we have on an operational reparations program, so it is incredibly important that the majority of opinion across racial groups views reparations positively. But you only sampled 5%, and it seems like the data is skewed tremendously towards the narrative and the idea of what you would like that would be in support of your program that you're promulgating. The data suggests that this locality's reparations program can be instructional for other municipalities and governments that wish to establish reparation programs. These people are idiots, man. They're so dumb, but they're still going to push it through. You also have the director of Northwestern Center for the Study of Diversity and Democracy, Alvin Tillery, said that the study's authors, quote, expected to find more support for reparations than we might have seen in other parts of the nation because the city's population is highly educated and has been very engaged in conversations about racial equity over the past several years. So it's just because they're highly educated, you guys. I'd be curious then on the observational study that you provided, is that those people actually have to check mark off on the study what their education level was, or else how would you know? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I have no idea. But he said he was stunned that more than 60% of every ethnic and racial demographic group thinks the program is good public policy for the city. Hillary also spoke with the Chicago Tribune, where he speculated why reparations typically don't become official policy. Quote, the reason that reparations never move forward is you've got all these octogenarian and Democratic politicians, typically white men, who may or may not think it's good public policy, but they're terrified you're going to lose white voters if you start talking about race too much. It's amazing that they just get away with this type of language. It's because you're white. And because you're white, this is so critical race theory here. It's because you're white that your racism is either conscious or unconscious. So no matter what you do, you're just a racist. So even though you have full reasoning and evidence to say, we shouldn't do reparations, I think it's wrong that somebody else is having to pay for the injustices of somebody in the past. Sound logic there. You're just a racist because of that's coming out of your mouth. Even though you're not a racist whatsoever, you want black people to thrive, you want them to be super successful, and you think the opportunities are out there in the ether, you are still racist, no matter what you do. That's critical race theory. That's some 1619 Project stuff. That's like Abraham X. Kennedy stuff right there. People are wild, man. These are the people running the show, too. So it's no wonder why Chicago's going down in the dumps, right? Where you had previously Mayor Lori Lightfoot just running it right in the ground. I mean, it's really not a shock to see all these leftist ran areas just completely just being shambled. You have the mayor, Daniel Biss, called the survey results striking. These people are idiots, man. 5% of the population. It's striking. I can't believe it. I have no clue probably how observational studies actually work. Well, the data's there. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's great that even if they surveyed 1,000, fine. But again, it's an observational study. It could totally be incorrect. Might not be representative of the population at all. Like not even close. And they're just going to make policy off of this. Well, some people like it. Well, it's striking, and said they demonstrate that when policymakers do the right thing and do with transparency, moral clarity, and public input, they can build public support even for very controversial ideas. You gotta love that moral clarity idea. Yeah, it's moral that you're the one paying for somebody else's injustices, somebody else's evil in the past. Wild, man. What? I mean, where does that thinking stop is the question. Everybody's had injustices put upon them. Even white people were enslaved. It literally is. It's an endless conversation. It's an endless it's a revolving loop. It's endless. It will never stop. Everybody's had some sort of injustices put upon them from an individual level to a group level to a tribal level to a country level. Well, I hope they inspire public officials across the country to be bold and ambitious in pursuing justice. Oh, it's justice. It's cosmic justice, you guys. Everybody's justice is equal and the same. Clearly, their justice is not what we think of as justice here as conservative Republicans. I don't think that somebody should just have a handout. I think slavery was bad. I think that segregation was bad. But what's interesting here is I'm seeing a lot of that conversation that Democrats want to see segregation happen again. As a matter of fact, they're implementing it in some universities and have been doing so for about 5 to 10 years. So it's interesting, those that basically espouse these types of ideas are also the ones that are hurting those groups that they're trying to uplift and to claim sort of justice upon some injustice that happened in the past. I don't know if I'm making sense. Again, let me know in the live chat if I'm making sense to you, but that's what's going on right now. It goes even further about slavery and the post-Civil War immigrants with the reparations and stuff that happened 150 plus years ago, and how you owe everybody money and it's coming out of your paycheck, and that paycheck's then going to taxes that's then going to somebody else because, again, they had some sort of housing discrimination against them that may or may not be tracked. And, well, they created this policy because they had some people answer a flyer that probably got taped to their forehead. So I'm strong on this. I don't believe reparations should happen. There's a time for that. There was a time for that in the past that should have happened. I'm sorry. Everybody got screwed in some way, shape, or form. I'm still getting screwed. You're getting screwed. Should we receive some sort of payout for that? I don't think so. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Hope you like the new, hopefully, look how clear it is. Oh my God, you guys can see my pores. We got a join tab right here. Would love for you to become a patriot. We're growing here bigly. We're going into the election season. So gather up, buckle up, folks. You are patriots. We need you here with us each and every video. Leave us a comment down below. Hit that like and subscribe button. Folks, I'll see you tomorrow here on The Will Brad Show.